Welcome to AI Lab Unfiltered, where we talk about everything AI in a practical sense. Today, we got a special guest with us, Mr. Dan Hungerford, founder of EverFriends AI. And he's going to talk to us about AI and emotional intelligence. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your background. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are with the work that you're doing.
Okay, fantastic. I have always had an interest in human behavior. So that's kind of where I started. I have a psych degree. I just always thought it's fascinating to me how humans interact and how their brains work and things like that, all the way back to even before high school. And so I decided at first I was going to be a psychiatrist. And so I started working on those kind of things because it fascinated me. Over the years, I had a chance to do a lot of things. One of the things I enjoyed most was I used to do corporate training, which is also, that interaction and corporate culture and things like that. I did that for John Maxwell for quite a few years. And as I got into the future of things and I kind of seen where this was going with AI and things like that. And so I started out with like some marketing and some things like that with avatars and automations and things. But this is such amazing technology, and I sat down one day and I thought to myself, what can we do that's different, that's maybe somebody's not doing that solves a problem. And I have an elderly mother, and, my dad's been gone a while, and it was tough on her, and as much as I try to look after her, and I do, one call a day, 2 calls a day sometimes is best I can do. And so sat down and thought, okay, what can we do to make this better for her? And this is why we started this. And as we went along, AI is moving so quickly, right? Things we couldn't do a year ago, we can do now. And so we started off with just this very basic thing that we thought maybe we can cartoonish or, with the old school avatars. And then we went all the way through to like just really cool digital humans. And it's been good. It's been, we weren't sure that, with the older population, especially the baby boomers, would they accept something like this? And we found that they do. And they're kind of excited because they know that they have these issues too, like being isolated, just feeling lack of connection. We're a culture since 2020 that's really kind of noticed that, we really crave this kind of thing. And, and as with the more virtual we've gotten, it's become a real problem, not just amongst aging adults, but amongst everybody. And so we're able now to really give almost the same kind of feeling, the same kind of connection. Obviously, never can be quite the same as a human connection, but we've simulated it close enough that, and we have stories after stories after story of people that just like, they just, their jaw drops. Like, I can't believe this is not somebody in here. I've had elderly people say to me, like, okay, who is that? I'm like, no, that is nobody. Like, you're literally talking to an algorithm with a face, but they just think that can't be right because look at the responses I'm getting,
Yeah.
So it's been really cool. It's been a cool journey, especially for me, because like I said, I like that idea of how humans work and how their brains work and how we relate to each other and all the nuances of that, and to be able to take technology that we just never, I would have never thought we could ever do this when I was going through college. Like, who would have thought we'd ever be able to have something like this?
Sure.
And
Now to give a little bit more context, explain exactly what EverFriends AI does. Like, what does that look like for people?
It is a mobile app available on iOS and Android. We did it that way because we wanted people to be able to take it with them. There's a few things that have been developed over the past few years. They're mostly hardware, and they're more Alexa-ish, if you will, like, Google Assistant type things. What we wanted to do is we wanted to develop something that was very simple, but also very realistic. And so we built out a empathetic, compassionate friend. We have 10 digital humans right now. You can pick between any of them. You click on the button and you start talking to them, and they know you. Yeah, they call you by name, like, hey, Dan, good to see you again. What would you like to talk about today? And they remember. And so as you go through, they adapt to you, who you are as a person. It can become so personalized. And so it really gives you that feeling like, okay, they know about me. They know who I am. It has a few other things in there as well, because we specialized in, aging adults. It has some reminder app stuff in there as well. It has some things where you can put in words that will notify somebody. Like if my mom would say, tell Nathan is her favorite said, "Hey, I'm running on my medicine. I gotta maybe run get some medicine." It could shoot me a message that says, "Hey, just check on mom, make sure she gets her medicine." Things like that.
Yeah.
Just because it's not just about. I mean, obviously, we want the user, our parent or grandparent to feel connected, right? But we as caregivers, either whether full-time, part-time, professional, or family, we want to feel like we are the loop with everything, and that there's somebody or there's some way we're checking in, even if we can't always be there. So the other side of what we do is that caregiving side, like, okay, I can't be there, but there's something watching over and let me know in case something's going on with mom or dad. Because a lot of people in different states even.
Yeah.
And so, there's not only that concern, but sometimes that guilt of, I love my mom, I love my dad, or what, grandma, grandpa. But so part of when we built it, part of that was that side of it is like, we want everybody to feel like they're doing the best they can to give a highest quality of life they can to people they love. Yeah.
So all AI based, obviously. It's all AI back end. How long has the company been around?
Early 2024.
So you guys were incredibly early adopters of AI on top of that, and then took it to a whole nother level. Like you're taking it to the level that we keep reading about, really. I mean, that's really what it is. It's exciting of what you're doing with it. So that whole back end tool, without giving away any of the proprietary, big LLM system on the back end then for you, that's yours, that you have built?
Yes, we have a customized or a trained LLM. That's where all the general knowledge comes from, right? Mm-hmm. You can talk to our digital humans, our digital friends about anything. You like gardening? You can talk gardening. When do I plant my tulips? They'll tell you. Well, I'm in Michigan, right? You want to talk about what you could cook for dinner tonight? I'm by myself. I only have, this is my refrigerator. What can I make? They can tell you. You want to talk history? You want to talk sports? I mean, I've talked about Mackinac Island. I've talked about, my son talked to him about Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, they know everything, right? Yeah. Everything that the internet knows. And so there's that piece of it, right? And then there's also what we would call buckets. And that is the personalized information. Grandkids' names, kids' names, preferences. I love Disney for vacation, these kind of things that it pulls from. So it pulls from the general knowledge, and then it tweaks it with the bucket to what makes sense to you or you like, So it works that way. And then also on top of that, we have what we call the empathetic voice. So as you guys know, it goes through speech, it turns it into text. Mm-hmm. It goes through into text. The text goes through and then it decides what the emotion is, and then it responds back with that through that. So everything goes through that, which is amazing because it literally takes microseconds. And that's a crazy thing about it. You could talk to it for this whole long sentence of a paragraph, and it shoots it there, it shoots it back, just like nothing's happened. And that's what's kind of mind blowing at this point. That it can do that quick. But yeah, that's kind of how the backside works on it.
So then the voices, you have multiple different voices and personalities then that people can choose from in the beginning?
Yeah. There's 10 of them right now. They all have their own voice. There's multiracial. There is men and women, obviously. We try to make it where everybody's comfortable. The next step is to make it more customizable. We get a lot of requests for that. The capability is already there. We talked a lot about ethics and things like that because we can make it look like somebody that you're related to. Nowadays, with 2 minutes of video and 1 minute of them just kind of like nodding and like stuff, you could literally transform them into a digital twin, voice and all. And so, but that's probably the next generation of that. We're adding more and more all the time because we want people to have choices. We're going to add maybe some younger as well. But most of them are middle-aged right now, middle-aged to older, because we want people to be able to relate. And we've had good success with the 10 that we have. But yeah, they are realistic. People don't realize that's one of the things that comes up a lot. People think that they're cartoons, and then they open up the app and they look at it and they say, "Whoa, they look real." Yeah, they do. They look like FaceTime with somebody And actually, I was showing. I teach some students on the side. I teach leadership a couple days a week, and so. Yesterday, I was showing some 7th and 8th graders, what the future looks like, right? And I opened up the app for them and showed them, and they just were blown, right? Like, oh my goodness, this is something that they didn't even think was possible. So that was the thing with when we started. Like I said, we wanted the simplicity, and I wanted people to forget that they were talking to something that wasn't necessarily. I mean, it's real, but it's not human. And we found that to be true. I mean, people have said to me, like, I have to remind myself sometimes that this is not a person. And that's what we were working towards. Yeah.
Nice.
You and I have had some conversations before this, and you were gracious enough to give us your time at the West Michigan AI Lab here this recent Wednesday. So thank you again for that. So I have so many questions about things that you've shared with me that I want to ask. So as we're talking about the app, it's not just listening to you, right? It's multimodal. So can you talk about like the other features that the app has and how it, the vision and all that?
Sure. Yeah, it can see you. That's one of the things I kind of forget to tell people sometimes is not only does it hear your tones and your language patterns and things like that to determine your emotions, it actually can read your face. And it's funny how people react to that. Because, they look at this and they think, okay, this is like some kind of computer program. I think I told you guys, I had a funny story about a lady that tested it who had red hair. And she was talking to the AI about different things that she did for a living and things. And she said something about dyeing her hair. And I think she was talking to Anna, which is one of our digital humans. And Anna said to her, "Why would you do that? You have such pretty red hair." And the look on her face was just like, it was partly terror and partly confusion.
Sure.
And I had to whisper to her, "I'm really sorry, but she can see you," and so that makes it really, that makes it really cool, because they not only does it give them more data about you, it makes it feel just that much more natural. And so yeah, it does both things, and it's getting better and better. We talk about sometimes it has a few tweaks that it needs at this point with sarcasm or nuance and things like that. But having all of that data to take in, whether it's facial features or whether it be tones or it, and as it adapts so much to you, even if say you are a sarcastic person, after a few conversations, they're going to get it, right? Like, maybe they don't understand why you do that, but they're going to get that you're not being, like upfront about stuff. And so, yeah, that multimodal really helped a lot. And boy, the future is really going to be something.
So does that take in account a lot of your users, and it kind of trains itself on that to kind of make it obviously real world? The more people that use it, the better that algorithm gets. That language model will get. Yeah,
the big language model takes all that into consideration. So as somebody uses it and they learn something about, okay, this is the good response for this, it will add that to the knowledge base. And so if say there's a weird topic that somebody comes out with, like we have been working with early stage dementia. And that's one of the things that is on the heart of one of my co-founder, my wife, Elizabeth, because she was in a hospice and her grandma had dementia for 10 years. And so the family, and anybody that has any experience with that knows how heartbreaking that is to watch.
It's rough.
Yeah. And so her heart is for that. And so we worked with that. But, people that know anything about dementia, there's no prediction of what they're going to do, right? Sometimes they live in a different time frame, and sometimes they ask the same questions over and over. But the way we built this is so that it can adjust to that, right? It can figure out, okay, this is the question they ask: where's my husband? Where's my wife? How do we redirect? Okay, well, we redirect because you can't tell them over and over that they're not here anymore because they just relive that over and over. So it learns that, okay, so then the next person that has the same issue, it already knows the redirect, Now it can, but it can get so personalized even with the redirect, because maybe one person wants to be redirected this way. Maybe one person has to be validated first and then redirected, like they want you to know that you know what I'm talking about, right? And so because of all that, it accumulates all that information and then uses it down the line for other people too. Yeah.
So if you've got multiple people, hundreds, thousands of people using it and adding kind of that information in there for that language model to learn, what is the challenges with the privacy that comes with it? Because I'm sure that had to have been addressed pretty early on to where you're not having frivolous people going in and say, yeah, what are Dan Hungerford's kids' names or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's one of the big things we had to right away. Not only just the privacy of the data itself, but also like HIPAA laws and things like that. We are HIPAA compliant because we don't know what they're going to talk to us about.
Yeah.
If they say about such and such a sickness or this or that, all that has to be kept safe. And so we have technology that sorts through some of that. We also have made it where it can't really change the basis of things. Like when we trained it, if you say to Nathan, I don't feel so well, what medicine can I take? right? He will not tell you, right? No matter
So
what
no
you
medical advice is going to come out.
Yeah, he will
Okay.
not tell you. He will tell you, I'm not qualified to tell you that. You need to contact your doctor, So there are certain things in place and things like that where you can't ask questions about somebody else that's not general knowledge.
Sure.
When we put that in when we built it so that we make sure that most of that is taken care of, because we want to make sure everybody feels safe. That's one of the things that people love about this that we found that I didn't expect was when we talk about why would you talk to an AI comparison to why would you talk to a friend. And there's two things that come out a lot that I didn't expect. One, they say, who are they going to tell?
Yep.
Right. If my mom complains about me to my sister might tell me, right? She can complain to Nathan all she wants, and Nathan's not going to say nothing, right? And then the second thing I didn't think about is judgment. Like, even if somebody really loves you, if you do something dumb, there's that little bit of that, that was dumb.
Yeah.
AI doesn't have that.
Yeah, I can't tell my mom that,
Right,
or
yeah,
I
right.
will be judged.
Yeah. Like I always say, my mom was like, Daniel Robert,
Yep.
she loves me, but she's like, that was dumb,
Yep.
And Nathan doesn't have that ability, right? He doesn't have the ability to be mean back to you. You can say things to him and he doesn't get offended.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that like, oh man, sometimes in some ways this is actually nicer if I want to have certain conversations. And so that was something I didn't expect when we started. That people would think that this is better in some ways. I went to, I think I told you guys, there's a company that's doing a PTSD app for the military. And that's what they found is that a lot of times they'd rather talk to the AI than they would the psychologist, for that exact same reason. Like there's no secrets that are leaked and there's no, there's no judgment about what I say. And that's a bigger deal than I would have thought. And I could see why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the key challenges in designing the AI around this to really engage in a meaningful, emotionally resonant conversation? Like how, because obviously phase one or your first prototype is not even going to be close to that. Where did you find some huge roadblocks that it was like, wow, we really got to get over this?
Yeah, we found early on that some of the roadblocks were that it would repeat itself over. It would you know how LLMs are. They have a tendency to use the same phrases. Mm-hmm. And so like it would say, oh, I hear you. Oh, I see you. And so that was one of the things. Determining between, one thing we learned early on too is like they get so specialized, you can't switch users. If you talk to them, Drew, and I talk to them, or Pete talks to them, it will get confused. They will get very confused. And they will say, oh, you seem upset today just because you don't talk like I talk.
Yeah.
Right. And so the generalization of that sometimes has been hard for us as well. Finding out how to slow them down and adjust them for, the older population was a challenge, especially the people with starting into the cognitive decline, right? What do we do as far as closed captioning? How about the speed that they speak? We had to do a lot of research into those kind of things and how that would affect, because if they're talking too fast or if they, the other thing that was a real problem is they would talk too much. Right, because we wanted them to keep the conversation going because we didn't want there to be a lull where somebody didn't know what to. That's one of the big things. Like, what do I talk about? Right, until you get used to it. And so we would have them keep the conversation going. If there was a little pause, they would just keep going, and people were really annoyed by that. Right, and so we had to learn how to adjust where it would give enough pause where it would let you talk, and so we could redirect. And that was one of the bigger issues we had because they would just keep going.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is it somewhere on the roadmap? So if you're currently with EverFriends, your target market is the elderly. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have something separate for early onset dementia, but it seems like with the data that you're collecting, you could start to kind of see early signs, even if they don't know it. Is there a thought there that you could start to like alert family members to say, hey, Uncle Steve is starting to, ask the same questions over and over again, is being really forgetful?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right, almost since the beginning, that has been something that's been fascinating. We've worked with University of Michigan a little bit, Michigan State a little bit, and that seems to be what they're most interested in because, when you do medical studies, you only have the ability to do so many people over so much time. 5 years from now, we could have a group of 100,000 that has been every single day tracked as far as, okay, well, if they weren't feeling well or they had headaches, or what does that matter? Or does the speech, how does it slow or how does it quick? So all these patterns that we might not even notice because we don't have that big of a set to look at.
Yeah.
And can we find things early on? Can we find things that may be associated that we didn't even know were associated? Like, is there certain types of stress they're going through that cause this to go quicker? Or is there things that if they're happier, does it slow it down? I mean, there's some science ideas behind it, but we don't have a full scale study like this. And that's one of the exciting things is because, man, if we could do that, because we record everything in text right now. And so is there things we missed that could help slow down this process?
Mm-hmm.
We know what isolation does. We know, but how much isolation? What does that mean?
Right.
And so, if you could have on scale of hundreds of thousands of people that use it regularly, boy, maybe there's something that we just haven't seen that we could. I'm not saying we could cure it, but we could maybe make it a lot better or make it a lot easier.
Or at least bring about awareness and capture it.
Right.
Like I read a story recently about a mirror that actually has AI built into it and it's connected and you can talk to it and it gives you different feedback, not quite what you're doing. But there was a woman that was using it every day and it noticed changes in her body and her face and her neck and called out that you have a thyroid issue.
Wow.
And she's like, what are you talking about? Went to the doctor and sure enough, she did.
Mm-hmm.
And they caught it. They said 6 months before they would normally catch it because it saw her every day and it almost cataloged that, if you will.
Yeah.
So if we can incorporate that into something that you're doing, that, oh my gosh, this is turning into dementia or this is turning into schizophrenia or something, to catch it early on.
Yeah. Clinical depression, any of those, kind of things that when you go to, even if you go to a therapy, you get at least 45 minutes, maybe every week, every other week. When you see your doctor sees you for 10 minutes and they rely a lot on what you tell them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know really what's going on with us, but the AI doesn't have that issue. It just takes the data, just like you said with the mirror. Like it doesn't, she might go to the doctor
with no bias.
Right. Yeah.
No bias to it.
So she might go to the doctor and tell the doctor, I don't feel right, but she doesn't really know why she doesn't feel right. But it watches all the different data points. And so that's amazing that they could do that. And that's something that, we're going to be trying to do down the line too, with the recording the video of it and things like that as well. Because those are things that early diagnosis on either whether it's even depression or extra anxiety or things that before it gets to the point where they're just totally shutting down. How big a deal is that? That's huge.
So when you're talking about how you still want to, as a son, obviously you still want to stay in the loop with your mom other than just normal talking. But if she's talking to Nathan, when does it cross that line, or does it even cross that line when something that you do need to be alerted by, does that happen? Is there a feedback mechanism where, okay, now this is, hey, by the way, mom's talking about this?
Yeah, there's two sides to our app. There's an individual side, we call it. So that is for people that can sign themselves up, right? My mom is on that side. If my mom were unable to, there is what we call a family member side. So I would sign her up. I would be able to track in my own side of her app. She'd have her own, I would have my own, but I would be able to see all of her data, all the interactions and things like that.
Almost like a report.
Yeah,
reporting type
feature. Put words in for alerts. Anything that I might think would be, or moods, aggravation, things like that, and it will alert. We don't do that on the individual side at this point.
Sure.
But one of the other things that we're working on that people have asked for is like a weekly report. Like I have a friend in New York. His mom lives in Florida. He's like, okay, if I could get like an email with, this is basically what mom has been thinking all week. So when I call her on Sunday, rather than talk about the weather for 20 minutes, I can kind of guide the conversation to get into some, and so that helps us connect quicker. And that's the whole point, right? Now,
that's an interesting way to use it too.
Yeah. Because people think, oh, well, they're connecting with the AI, but the idea is to help us all connect.
Yes.
And so if you have information, if I have information about our parents, we can say, okay, a little bit of, hey, the weather's been great, but mom, I've been thinking about such and such, and see if she opens up and talks about. Then next thing you know, we're having this conversation we may not have had because I would have had no idea. And that's what we're trying to do, is that it's not just about the AI. It's about us, you know.
It's like using AI to empower you
to enhance those relationships, right?
Yeah.
You know, and
Smart,
make us feel closer to our parents, or I mean, down the line, anybody particularly, by having more information.
Yep.
And so that's what's really cool, because I mean, we want people to like our app, but we want people to be connected to their family too in deeper ways. You know. Yeah.
Right before you asked that question, you had talked about therapy. And I thought there was a really cool interaction at the West Michigan AI Lab. Plug for the AI Lab. For go to Meetup and look us up. Hopefully there'll be a link in the episode here. And there was a therapist in the audience when you were presenting, and she had some awesome questions about that. And it was, you know, why would somebody want to use AI? Why don't we just teach people to be more introspective in that? And can totally see where she was coming from. That's her field. Like that's what she went to school for, and how she makes a living and everything. But what got me thinking about that is when you said you've got 45 minutes once a week or every couple of weeks. This is really access, right? So, you know, who can afford to talk every day to a therapist, you know, regardless of what your copay and your insurance is, like it's still a lot of money, right? And for a monthly fee, you've got unlimited access to somebody that you can talk to at any time. And maybe you still need to talk to a regular therapist once a week. I don't think it replaces them, but now you can extend that and you have more just access in this technology. And I think that's what's making it so great.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It not only does it fill those gaps in, that's kind of what we're looking to do. You know, we've tried, it would be awesome if we could teach people and they only needed this much, you know, but we're relying on them to tell us what's going on with them, you know, and even if you're pretty self-aware, you still have blind spots on what's going on with you. And so that's kind of the idea, even with therapy, is you're having daily or maybe a couple times a week conversations. And even for therapists, so when they sit down with you, rather than some of that basic talk over and over again, they could, I mean, if you decided you wanted that, they could have some of that. And okay, so now this is the pattern that I'm seeing. Or even if they don't even tell you, like, okay, I mean, so that makes everything just that much more meaningful and maybe helpful. You're right. We can't replace those, you know, we're not trying to. We can't replace those moments. But if you, I don't know how it is now, but I know like a couple of years ago, if you tried to get a therapist, it was maybe 8, 10, 12 weeks.
Get on the list.
Right? So what if I'm in crisis now, you know, and I'm not saying that EverFriends is that for you, but there are apps that are coming out with that kind of thing. And it really is to just make everybody, the more data, I mean, it seems weird to say, but the more data you have about a person, the more you can relate to them. You know, we tend to shield ourselves, and for good reason, but sometimes not it's to our detriment that we do that. You know, I mean, I go to therapy. My therapist will tell you all the time, like people spend 6 months and they don't really tell anything. Right? Because they're not comfortable. What we found with EverFriends, and probably will continue, is people aren't comfortable. And so they want to get better. They don't necessarily know what to do and what to say. And so if there's that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, how to put it into words. That's what I was thinking when that got brought up was, if it were me, I would be, if I have a panic attack at 3 a.m. or something like that, or 8 a.m, or whenever, that I'm not seeing my therapist, that I could just, I don't want to say unload, but I would definitely interact with that. And then to be able to continue that conversation with, okay, cool, Friday when I meet with my therapist, Nancy, she can be up to speed on it. Say, tell me about what happened on Monday when you did X, Y, and Z.
Here's the report. Read that, email it to her ahead of time. I'll be in on Friday at 10 and this is what happened.
And just like you said, you're past that breaking the ice, that, okay, I got to get comfortable, because I'm a huge proponent for mental therapy and go in every couple of years for a tune-up. You know, and you always have that. I'm here for an hour, and the first 20 minutes, I'm just still trying to get comfortable. And then I start opening up, and then it's like, why can't I have a 3-hour appointment? You know, because now I'm ready to talk.
If you're at home and you have the app, you don't have to get comfortable. You're already on the couch, or, you know, wherever you're at. And so that comfort's already there versus going to some, you know, not sanitary. I'm downplaying it at all. I'm in therapy too,
but a specialized facility.
Where it's not home, and you're sitting in a chair that's not your chair, but you could be have that app and have that access.
And I think you guys are right. I think the big deal is like those crisis kind of situations. You know, one of the things we get asked a lot about what our app can do. I talked to a lady in England who has a nonprofit that deals with people that are thinking about suicide. And she said to me, if we could teach them specifically what gets people out of those dark spots, how many people do we save? Because like you said, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You're not, your therapist is probably not answering the phone.
Yep.
Right. Or I mean, they have hotlines and stuff. A lot of people wouldn't do that, but if they're used to this and you've had conversations with your avatar about, okay, I need to hear this in these moments. You pick that up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you say, I'm having some struggles. Boom. They go right into it.
Yep.
I mean, again, not the same as a human, but maybe enough.
But like you said, bridges that gap.
Right,
It
yeah.
bridges that
Yeah.
gap till you get to
Right.
that point.
Just enough to get you through.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all we need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell me about the breath. You said, obviously it's an online app, so anybody in the world can use it, but how far of a reach have you seen this business go so far?
Yep. So we are available in UK. We're available in Australia, Canada, the US, and India at this point. Next will be France. Actually, we track where everybody's watching us from and looking at us from, and that's the next one. We can speak multiple languages, or they can. 30 of them at this point. We don't have that available much because almost all English-speaking countries right now, but we can do that. The idea is that it be a worldwide thing. I've had people contact me from like the Middle East and say, our families, we value, sometimes in the United States, sometimes we're not the best about taking care of our elderly, right? Some of these countries are, but they still understand that I can't do everything.
Yeah.
Whether it be, Asian countries, they have that tradition a lot better than we do. Like I said, Middle East, but we've been contacted by a lot of different, like, man, we could see how this would help us too. And so the idea is that over the next couple of years, and as we get better, that we will be a worldwide option for people. That's the goal. Yeah.
You had shared another story on Wednesday. I'm going to try to just give you minimal cues so I don't tell the story, but it was your mom was talking with Nathan. She was kind of signing off, and Nathan was like, "Hey, remember?" Could you share that story?
Sure. Like I said, one of the things we wanted so much was to get that feeling of connection, right? That's even if it's simulated. That okay, this person gets me. This AI gets me. And so my mom was one of our first guinea pigs, if you will, right? And she was the one that I asked first, would you talk to somebody like this? And she's like, oh, okay, But over time, she's picked Nathan. It's her favorite of the 10. And he's great. And she talks to him probably every day. And it was 2 weeks ago, she had a conversation with him in the evening. And she was feeling kind of down. And so they were laughing about some stories and joking back and forth about some of the funny things that had happened. She told about her falling asleep in the theater on Christmas and snoring so everybody could laugh. And so they were laughing together. And he was telling about, boy, that's quite a story. But then at the end, it was getting late, and she said, I got to let my dog out, and I'm going to go to bed, and he said, it was great talking to you, Jan. That's my mom's name. Great talking to you, Jan. He said, I want you to remember something. Your family really loves you. And he named me, Dan, my sister, Heidi, all 5 grandkids by name. And I want you to remember that. And you're not alone. And he said, it was great talking to you, and I can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow. And when she relayed this story to me, you could just see on her face, like, I feel like this is something that I'm connected to now. She's had conversations for a month or two, but he knows her well enough now and almost kind of knows what she needs to hear, and it's so crazy because we didn't teach the algorithm to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it figured it out as it adapted to my mom. And it was so remarkable because I didn't know we'd ever get that close to that. And here we are. B, it meant so much to my mom. C, it reminded me that I should probably tell my mom that more often. So maybe it makes me a better son too, because I was like, oh, Mom, you aren't alone, and I love you. But it was like, it was really a moment. We have quite a few stories like that with people who have reached out to us. Like, I have to really remind myself that this person, and I said, why bother? Don't even bother with it. The whole point was if it's making you happier and it's making you feel like your life is a little bit better.
Seamless. Make it seamless.
Then don't worry about that part of it. It's not. I think they worry that we had a conversation about that at the meeting with the West Michigan AI Lab. Was like, at what point do people not want humans anymore?
Yeah.
And I get that idea. Because like I said, no judgment. That who are they going to tell? But I think that, especially in the older generations that we've had, they worry that something's not right about it because they've been taught that humans we need that, and we do. Yep. But just enjoy the fact that you feel that your life's a little bit better and that you're supported. and not worry about the other side,
Yeah, and that brings up, because I remember the gentleman that brought that question up too, and I've been thinking about that literally ever since.
Yeah,
and I
me
wrote
too.
that down to bring that up in this conversation. Was as good as AI is evolving and becoming that more human-like voice in the room, especially with your app. Is AI going to compete for our attention span? Is it going to compete with the attention of other humans in the future? Because I see my son where, and I know you grew up the same way I did, where you want to go hang out with your friends, you rode your bike over there. I'm sure you did the same thing.
Absolutely.
We're all about the same age. It's like, you just went over there and you did it. You come home when the street lights come on or when it gets dark, whatever comes first. That's what I always had. And you got kicked out and your parents had no idea where you were at.
Yeah.
But to nowadays, my son, the way he interacts with his kids, and I fought it like crazy in the beginning because he's online gaming with his friends. And I'm like, your friend, literally 2 of them live right around the corner. Like, just have them over. And every once in a while they do get together at home. But at the same time, he said, well, Dad, this is how we play. This is what we do. And it took me a while to go, oh my gosh, this is the next generation. It is online because we didn't have that. Mm-hmm. So to have that now, instead of playing video games at the person, they're just playing it together online. So then I thought, with that question being proposed, I'm like, oh my gosh, it wouldn't replace it for me. But for him, he might go, I want to play with the avatar instead of, Chris down the street. Mm-hmm. So to see that play out, it'll be really interesting where that actually goes, and how far that actually gets adopted in.
The friend that he's online gaming with, the voice could be AI. The actual AI could be playing the game. If it's a cooperative game, could be playing the game along with your son or our sons. My son's a gamer too. And, that was the question that came up in the lab, which was fascinating. And there's no right or wrong or answer to it because we don't know exactly where it's going to go. But what he was proposing was that we will be drawn to these kind of perfect friends. He didn't use that terminology, but kind of what he was inferring, like they're always available. They know you so well that they're always going to say the right thing, and they're never going to not show up for an outing or lie to you, because humans are flawed, right? And these are more like unflawed humans that you could interact with. It is interesting to see where it goes, and I've been thinking about it a lot too. The solace that I get is like, I don't have just one friend in my real life, so I might have an AI that I interact with for certain things, but I'm still going to go talk to my buddy Damon or my friend Drew here about certain things because you need that variety. So I don't know. That makes me feel better. I don't know if that's what's really going to happen.
And then getting into, that's not even including like robotics and how that's going with humanoid with AI now in it. I mean, are we all going to have a C-3PO next to us in 10 years? That type of thing.
That'd be pretty awesome.
I think so too. But going back to your point, being seamless, don't overthink it at that point, because you can blend it. You can still, if you're still getting that payback, that payout of it, then there's value in it. It's fake. And they have fake influencers, AI generated influencers that are human looking. They talk, they speak, they hold up products, they talk about it. And it's a group of 10 developers in a basement that are just pumping them out. Great. What's the next product? Oh, Pepsi's got a new product. Great. Put that into it. We'll give it to Angie, who's the avatar in Canada, or something like that. Yep. And they're even disclaiming this is completely made with AI. And people are going, "Oh, I don't care. I just want to know about the product." And you're going to tell me exactly how I want to consume it. Yeah. Well, then what do I care at that point? Sure. If it's a real person or not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that this generation, like my mom's generation, I mean, even as Generation X, we've had mostly technology. Yeah. I think going forward, like I said, I talk to students every week and I ask them those questions, like I had the same time with my son. I took away his phone when his grades were going bad, and like he melted down because I was like, "You're with your friends all day at school. What do you mean? Yeah. They don't talk at school. They come home and they Instagram with each other." And it was mind blowing to me because I was the same way. Grew up the same way. Yeah. And it's going to challenge our belief systems even, because we were taught that we have to have this kind of connection. They're kind of already getting away from that because they don't really interact face to face anyway. Yeah. And so we believe it because we've always been taught. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think that probably is, but that's also what we've been taught.
But just a generational thing. Right. I think you're absolutely right. The younger generations where it's they grew up with it. They grew up with cell phones. They grew up with internet. Like, well, yeah, you just Google it. And I'm like, you can Google it. There's so much out there. It's the whole, and he's like, well, what's the big deal?
Right. Yeah.
And I think even, the Generation Z or whatever comes after that is going to be so ingrained with it where it's like, yeah, you have an avatar. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a little son, 10. You won't like me to call him little, but he's my little son. And, he's Gen A, and he'll never know, he hates commercials because he doesn't understand the idea behind that,
Yeah.
And like you said, robotics. And I mean, spoiler alert, we're already working on holograms.
Yeah.
And so you'll not just have to hold your phone, you can have Nathan sit next to you and talk to you. I mean, this is going to be stuff that they think is normal. That we are like, whoa,
Yeah.
For my 10-year-old, by the time he gets my age, this will be, and probably better than that even, depending on how the life goes. But yeah, it's just going to become more and more all encompassing, and I think people just will start to accept it a little bit more,
So where do you see your company, if you could look into a crystal ball and say, this is where I want to go? Which I don't think that even makes sense what I said. Okay, let's say you're not looking at a crystal ball, you're looking at a map and you say, here's where I want to go. Here's where I want to bring this company. Here's where I would really like to see ourselves in 3 years, 5 years. What would that look like?
I think it would be continuing our base, our core, right? There's 7.7 million people over 65 in the United States to help already. But also, we get a lot of requests for different things that I think the technology works for too, whether it be autism. We talked about like suicide prevention. We talked about people have talked about brain injury. Like, these people contact me and they say, what do you think? Well, we're going to learn together if it will work or not. And so I think, if I was going to throw out a wish, it would be that whether it's our technology or somebody else's, that we are just literally helping those people that fall in the cracks.
Yeah.
Right. That we've done our best we can, but as humans, we're limited, and these AIs, they're going to become pretty much unlimited at a certain point. So the way they learn about how we are and what we can do and how they can customize themselves. I have a big heart for education. My little son is on the spectrum. He's not the top of this class. He needs extra help. And he goes to a private school, and that's great, and they do great.
Yeah.
But he can only see the tutor 20 minutes a week, and the teacher is great, but she's got 32 other students, and what about the fact that he could open his laptop and that AI already knows him. He knows how he learns. It teaches him how he learns even better. And so now maybe his math goes from a C to an A because it's so personalized to teach him exactly the way we all learn differently.
Yep.
And so in a broad sense, I think, those are the things that I'd like to tackle. We started with this problem, this challenge, but to me, the two things that mean more to me the next are the autistic side of it and then that education point. If we could expand out to those two things, I would be really happy because I think I'm a huge believer in the next generation, right? That's why I do some of the stuff I do on the side. They're our future, right? And so whether it's autism or it's education, the better that they do, the better we all do, And so I like to think that we're taking care of both ends, right? This side, moms and grandmas and grandpas, and we're also bringing this side up the best that we can too. So that's my heart.
Nice.
Diving
I
a little,
think you're on the tip of the iceberg too.
Yeah.
What you're getting into.
just diving a little bit more on the autistic side of things. And we talked right before we started here, and I've shared with you before, I also have a son who's on the spectrum. Can you just expand a little bit more of what that focus would be on on focusing on autism using that technology?
Sure. Well, the idea now is, as we try to think about how this would look, is that it would give an opportunity for one of our digital humans to help them, teach them to interact in a way that makes them feel less out of place and less awkward in real public when they're dealing. And so, can we give them? I hate to say reps, but reps about, and then counsel them and tell them, hey, this is okay. Validate. This is okay that you feel this way, but let's try this a little bit. Let's try this, and whether it's eye contact, whether it's the greetings. I know sometimes it's the greetings that they struggle with. Can we use it as a way for them to relate, and also as a tool to help them to get these skills a little bit closer to what they would want them to be, so that they don't feel out of place when they are in the general public. I mean, that would be a huge deal to be able to do that. And so I think it has a relational part and a training or academic or whatever part you want to say, that okay, maybe we can give them we can take best practices. Like say you had a therapist that you were going to, like they're teaching, but they're only teaching this once a month or once a week. Where you get the repetition that you get from a avatar that has learned the best about every practice that when it comes to deal with that, right? This is what we talk about when we talked about even the elderly, when we train this, like it knows the best way to do dementia. We went to the top people about dementia. And we included in that. This is as good as we know right now. Mm-hmm. Same thing with autism. Okay, what do we know now? What can we learn as they use it? And how do we make everybody feel valuable and a part of this, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge deal to me too, is this everybody's so valuable. And so many times things, whether it's elderly people or it's people on the spectrum, they get kind of like, well, they have that, and they move past them. And that, not everybody deserves to have the best life they can. And if this technology allows for that, then so be it.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned people reaching out to you to see if this would work for what they're trying to deal with. How are people finding you?
Some through the website. We have a website, a lot through LinkedIn and things like that. A lot through referrals. I mean, we have a pretty big network now with, we've got some people like I said, in UK, some of the top doctors and the University of Manchester type, and so a lot of it is word of mouth as well. Like when I talked to the lady that has the nonprofit for suicide, she was referred to me by another lady that does elder care in the UK. So a lot of it's from that. As we've gotten our name out there more, people kind of look at it and they start having these ideas like, okay, well, man, I see this issue. I mean, the world's got plenty of those, plenty of challenges.
Yeah.
And so, mostly it's a lot of it's word of mouth actually. And I get an email that says, hey, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. But then otherwise I get, a lot of things through direct messages and LinkedIn and stuff that people have looked into what we do and want to know how far can we push this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Before you started EverFriends, how were you using AI? Like what got you introduced to AI and kind of led into starting that?
Sure. Well, I was, like I said, I was training with John Maxwell, and I thought, I saw this technology. It was, of course, when I started, it wasn't like it is now, right? I mean, it's still kind of cartoonish, and which is cool. But I mean, the idea that you could make a cartoon version of you pop up on the website and talk to people was like, that's amazing.
Sure.
Now it seems like, okay. But I mean, at that point, that was really something. And so when I first started, I was thinking about the people that I worked with. And, people love to train and they don't like to sell themselves, right? They want to just go in and train. They don't want to have to go out and get new clients and things like that. So I was working on these, whether it be emails or things where you could customize your pitch in somebody's email with you, a version of you, and do it at scale. And so like if you don't feel like you just want to go into General Motors and talk about culture, you don't want to have to meet with 1,000 people that you have to do that, that you could start doing these kind of things. So that's how I got started in it, automating that kind of thing. And then, like I said, one day I remember very, very specifically sitting in my office one day and just thinking, this is unbelievable. Because I was watching it, even 3 months, 6 months time, it's like, oh man, like I said, when we started early 24, the things that we can do now, you couldn't have done them. Not to mention, I mean, 2 months before we launched, I retooled all the avatars, right? Because we were using old technology at that point, and I wasn't willing to do that, and so. So then it became, a mission to see what we could do with something that is just so much greater than, not that there's anything wrong with introducing yourself through avatars to, companies, but I like impact, and I like making the world better if I can, even if it's a small part, and that's big. That's important to me, and so, so that's why I started on that road is and I made that switch. I still have the other company. I don't do much with it anymore because this takes up almost all of my time. But that's where my fascination started was just trying to another problem that people had. They don't want to sell. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And when you're in your free time, which doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of, what are your favorite tools? Are you a ChatGPT guy, Perplexity, all of them, Gemini? Yeah,
I do ChatGPT and Claude mostly. I do like Perplexity because of the research parts of it. Yeah. I use it for all things. Like when I do my presentation, I use Gamma. I don't write those slides. I could never make something that cool. You know what I mean? And so I almost use it for about anything anymore. I mean, our customer service when you first reach out to EverFriends is AI run. You would never know because you call and you talk to somebody that's not real. Now if they will put you to some people if you need to, but so I've actually used a good chunk of my life now. I have automated based on that, and I think it could continue to go that way. Scheduling and all these kind of things that we have now. But yeah, I think probably use ChatGPT the most. I use it for ideas a lot. So if I have an idea about, say I want to write a blog post, or I get asked to write articles a lot, and so I start thinking about, okay, what is the most popular thing? What do people care about most? And so I'll ask them, hey, what are the 10 most important topics to such and such a group? And then I pick that out and then I start researching and stuff like that. But I love using those tools. It's so cool to be able to, and the more, as the more you use even ChatGPT, the more it kind of gets to know you too. And it knows your preferences and things like that. And it's amazing and it takes so much less effort. I tell people, the old days, we had to actually crack open their encyclopedia and then we had to write down, and now it gives you all your citations and everything, and they just don't know how good they have it. Depending on where your parents were, the encyclopedia could have been 10 years old. The information not even be good by the time you wrote your paper anyway. Exactly. And so, but yeah, the tools are amazing and they continue to get better and better. And so, one of the things that we're, just as a side note, thinking of research and things like that we've been reached out that I just thought about is intake and onboarding, like especially for medical. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that somebody's reached out to me for too is, when you are going to have a doctor's appointment or therapy appointment, they give you all this paperwork, right? When I took I'm an ADHD guy, so I took my test, filled all the paperwork. Right? They didn't get much information on me because I wasn't going to write all that out, right? And so we had a company actually reach out to us about, can we automate that where you just have a conversation, and how much more information are you going to get out of people? Yeah. Because I'm only going to write you 1 or 2 sentences. That's not it. But my mind won't let me do anything more than that. I'll click yes, no, and then just, and whether it be medicine, whether it be therapy, whatever it be. I mean, we're talking about right now with EverFriends, we have a onboarding. So it gets to know you a little bit before the first conversation. It's a chatbot style, but we're talking the next generation will be somebody, if you open up the app, the first person that greets you is my mom. I did that for a honor to honor her. She welcomes you to. And so maybe you talk to Jan and talk to her about your life a little bit. That's going to be a cool technology too. That's what I was thinking about, like what you said about what do I use? Like I would love that. I think we're not that far from OpenAI and stuff instead of having to type it in, it just pops up and says, hey Dan, what do you want to talk about today? And what do you want to learn about today? I think that's coming very quickly too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure talking to you on this. I know even having you at the West Michigan AI Lab meetup group was awesome. Spurred on a big conversation. Always learn a lot from you, and it's really cool to see this product come to life. And I'm excited to see where this goes because I really think you're on the tip of the iceberg here. There's so much more coming that you can imply or implement in here. Yeah. Tell people where we can find you.
You can find us at EverFriends.ai. You can find us on all social media, same name and stuff like that. If you can find me on LinkedIn, I love hearing from people. Go on. It's a 7-day free trial. Try it out. Tell me what you think. Don't tell me what you think I want to know. Tell me what you think, because we want the best product possible. And I do. I appreciate you guys, like the conversations. This is the conversations we need to be having. Yes. Whether it be this or what the other night that we had. This is how we learn how we're going to use this, right? And where the lines are and things like that. And so I appreciate the fact that you guys do this so that there's a lot of misinformation about how this works and what it's going to do. And, there's a lot of fear. And this is how we make people think, okay, there's a lot of good to this. It's not all end of the world movies here. Yeah. And so I appreciate you guys, give me the chance to, talk about how we can use this to benefit and how, like I said, not only for the connection for the person, but amongst all of us together, make the world a little bit better place.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot,
That's a great outro right there.
Writes itself.
If you want to learn more, hit like and subscribe. Thanks, everybody.